One of the things that you often hear the argument from people, this was one of the things about the tariffs that the Trump administration was trying to impose, right? That a lot of the US Chamber of Commerce in China, this kind of stuff, they were all like, well, the American people are going to have to pay the price with higher cost for goods.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what that's what the argument was. That's what the focus was on. That, oh, well, you're going to not be able to get stuff at the dollar store for so cheaply, or you're not going to be able to get stuff at Walmart or Target.
Or it would hurt American farmers. But that would be because China was attacking American farmers with their own tariffs, not so much of a natural market force thing.
But the idea that, it's good for us to have a low-cost manufacturing in China, and if you want to tariff those things, that's disadvantageous to Americans. And I think one of the things is that people in America, a lot of people we've talked to do not like having to buy a lot of things made in China that are, especially, the kind of things that you get on Amazon Marketplace that, that are cheap and will break and
of terrible quality. I've gotten things from Amazon that just smell toxic.
Or you go on Amazon, you look for just something really like a pair of scissors or something, or
a tea kettle, something to boil water.
Yeah, and then you see all these different companies that are making the same tea kettle that are obviously all Chinese companies, and you're not sure which one is actually the original company because they're all, it's probably one factory.
It's so difficult to find even an alternative, even if you wanted to spend more for something made in the U.S. or made anywhere besides China. Just a lot of times you can't even find it.
Yeah, there's so much noise. It's difficult to figure out. And there's no law that says that companies have to disclose the product origin on the internet.
I bought a desk for our new studio setup. And you saw this as well, Shelley. So I was trying to get something from IKEA, and there were supply chain issues, and I wasn't able to order from them. I bought this one on Amazon. It didn't say it was from China, but I bought it and I got it. And then firstly, you could see on the physical product, it did say made in China, which really bothered me. And on top of that, if you actually looked at the instruction manual, it was a direct knockoff of IKEA. When I put it together, it was the same style with the pegs and the screws, everything. It was exactly the same. Even the first page of the instruction manual, you're like, oh my gosh, it is such a ripoff of IKEA.
It's the two IKEA guys, right?
I'll put it on screen here. And so, but I had no way of knowing where it was from. It's so hard.
Sometimes they'll say imported, but they don't have to say where it's imported from.
But this one didn't say that. But anyway, it's really frustrating because I've made such an effort to try to get stuff made at a minimum, not in China, but ideally made in America for all the new stuff I'm buying. And it's almost impossible. And especially if you're getting anything online, because there's just no way to know, because the companies are, I believe, intentionally not disclosing the origin of products because they don't have to, so they won't, because they know if they put a big made in China thing, people aren't going to buy it. It's like companies that have stuff made in the USA, they all say made in USA, right? Because they know that consumers want that. And if they're hiding where it's from, where do you think it's from?
In some cases, the companies themselves, I was buying a desk and I tried to call several different furniture companies to figure out where their products were made from. It just said imported. And I talked to customer service people. I chatted online with customer service people. Nobody had access to that information.
Ah.
That was the weirdest thing. They were like, oh yeah, we'll get back to you. And then they got back to me and they were like, we don't know. That's not in our database. We cannot tell you. I would have to go physically look at the desk or the box the desk came in, where it would have to have a country of origin stamp.
And if it's an online thing, you would literally have to somehow go to the warehouse and look at it, which you wouldn't have access to. They're not going to just let you into their warehouse.
And it's not just tables and electronic appliances. Like the other day, I bought some spinach from my local supermarket, and I was eating. I was like, "Oh, this tastes a little strange." It was like a bag of frozen spinach, and it tasted a little strange. And I looked at the bag, and it said imported from China.
Your frozen spinach.
My spinach was from China.
Was this in a Chinese store?
No,
Huh.
just a normal
A lot
supermarket.
of U.S. garlic comes from China, which is also horrifying because
Ginger too.
there is there was an investigation, I think, from Financial Times a few years ago that found that Chinese prisons, had been making their prisoners peel garlic for export. That's where you want your garlic from.
It's like the Xinjiang tomatoes, where they're having like Uyghur slave labor, or I guess they call it something like
How dare you, Matt?
involuntary work training programs.
No, it's a vocational education, and they're all there happily under the watchful eye of a Chinese policeman for their safety.
So like if you buy maybe not Heinz ketchup in the U.S., but like a lot of ketchups in Russia, Eastern Europe, and that sort of region of the world. A lot of those. Not
just Russia and Eastern Europe. CBC, the Canadian media, came out with this investigation that showed a lot of Canadian canned tomato products and sauces were coming from Xinjiang.
Yeah.
And they were being routed through companies in Italy, different places. But like the origin of the tomatoes was from Xinjiang.
Why can't we just grow food in America?
The U.S. a few years ago under the Trump administration did ban tomato products from Xinjiang.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem. It can be very hard for U.S. Customs to figure out where these products come from because, like I said, with the Canadian products, some of them were an Italian company, right?
Yeah, they know how to hide it.
This reminds me of the honey from Dubai.
Right.
A country or city-state that does not produce its own honey.
There was briefly I don't know if there still is this ban, but for a number of years there was a ban on Chinese honey because China was using a certain type of pesticide that could have been dangerous to bees or something like that because we were having the whole, bees dying off mysteriously all over the world thing. So the USDA had, the US Customs had banned imports of Chinese honey, but then what was happening were these Chinese honey producers were routing their honey through a third country, like Dubai. And then it's stamped, made in Dubai honey or coming from Dubai honey. And then that was to evade the customs.
But like with the spinach thing, I just think it's so crazy that we have a system where instead of like upstate New York, a farmer grows spinach and it gets to the local grocery store. This spinach was grown somewhere in China under who knows what conditions, frozen, put on a boat, and shipped all the way to the other side of the world.
And that's cheaper. Well, fresh spinach is not expensive, but it's more expensive than frozen spinach.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
It's insane, the world we live in. And then also you got to think about like, besides all of the like terrible conditions in China and the hollowing out of, say, in this case, farming, like think about the environmental impact of having to ship food halfway around the world, whether it's on an airplane or a container ship, right? Like the amount of fuel that they use, the carbon footprint, like it's just such a stupid way to do it when you could just truck it in 50 miles from upstate New York. Like it's so dumb. It's so dumb. But because it's so ridiculously cheap in China and like all these other costs and all these other externalities, whether it's environmental or whatnot.
Well, economies of scale, Matt.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Well, also, they've built these supply chains over the last 20 to 30 years to operate like this, right? So now if you wanted to, like when we interviewed that guy from Prestige Ameritech, the mask maker who was talking about how you cannot even manufacture masks that easily in the U.S. anymore because a lot of the equipment was sold off.
Yeah. It actually reminds, I've been rewatching 30 Rock recently, and there was like an episode where they start a factory to build sofas, but American engineers don't know how to build sofas anymore, and so the sofas just come out. Well, what ends up happening is they sell to the U.S. government to use as torture devices.
Okay.
because they're that uncomfortable.
This is
But-
not. This is an interesting 30 Rock, episode.
Yeah.
That's more off the rails than this podcast.
Well, no, it makes sense because like when all of this manufacturing is shipped off to China, we lose the ability to make that. It's not like, and this is what the guy at Prestige Ameritech was saying, it's not like just you can be like, okay, let's start a factory.
Because who knows how to do this anymore?
Yeah,
Right.
Where
it's
do you
gone.
get the equipment?
There's-
We sold it 20 years ago to China.
Right. And there's a lot of knowledge that goes into manufacturing that can't be fully documented in like a training manual. So, over time you've had people like a lot of Americans and other Westerners go to China and teach local factory workers and managers how to make the stuff that used to be made in their country. Right. And that knowledge is then passed on. And then those Westerners retire or get out of the industry. And then that's it. That knowledge is now been like fully transferred to China and it dies off in that country, the original country. So just imagine all the things, whether it's masks you can't make anymore. We look at, 20 years from now, if this continues, or even 10 years from now, it may not even be possible to make semiconductors in the US if all of that knowledge just goes to China. We rely on only China, and then we stop having factories in the US. So just that knowledge is gone.
And especially if Taiwan, the place that's making the best semiconductors in the world right now, gets invaded by China because they have semiconductors that U.S. venture capitalists have helped fund.
Well, the good news is that China needs the technology from semiconductors to be able to successfully invade Taiwan, which they can't get until they successfully invade Taiwan.
Oh, just watch.
Yeah. Speaking of the mock-up of the U.S. aircraft carrier that they're using for target practice, they're preparing for that. It's a very real thing.